A rather strange story about a young woman named Marilyn made headlines across Canada in 2008. She had come to visit her parents for a few days, went out for a walk, and then disappeared. In this video, we will tell you what really happened. On the morning of February 17, 2008, 24-year-old Marilyn Bergeron left her family's home in Quebec, Canada, to go for a walk and get some fresh air. However, she never returned. Surveillance footage from an ATM in Loretteville recorded her attempting to withdraw money early that morning. She was last seen nearly 5 hours after leaving home at a coffee shop in the Saint-Romuald area of Quebec. Since then, there have been several reports of Marilyn being spotted in different parts of the country, particularly in the Ontario area near Quebec, but none of these sightings have been confirmed. Marilyn Bergeron was born in 1983 in Chicoutimi, Canada. In 1998, her family moved to the Haute-Saint-Charles area in Quebec. At the age of 10, Marilyn began studying music. She continued to pursue her passion in high school, dreaming of forming her own band. Marilyn's parents recalled that she was unpredictable, sometimes got into trouble, and had friends who influenced her negatively. They also mentioned that she was open-minded and interested in different cultures. Marilyn was fluent in both English and French, had studied some Spanish, and had started learning Russian. After earning a degree in media arts and technology, Marilyn Bergeron moved to Montreal in 2005. There, she worked as a sales consultant at a music store and did freelance sound editing for local TV stations. Marilyn also attended finance courses organized by Industrial Alliance. Her goal was to become a flight attendant and eventually move to Western Canada. In early 2008, Marilyn began telling her family that she no longer felt safe in Montreal and wanted to return to Quebec. She told her mother that she couldn't explain her reasons yet, but she would once she moved back. On February 10th of that year, she suddenly left her apartment in Montreal and returned to her parents' home. After 2 more trips to Montreal to gather her belongings, she finally moved in with her parents 6 days later. Family members recalled that Marilyn experienced severe anxiety during that week. One day, she spoke on the phone with her sister Natalie and said she didn't want to go back to Montreal, though she didn't specify why. We tried to get her to explain, but she stayed silent and just cried, Natalie remembered a year later. Andre Bichard, Marilyn's mother, tried to find out the reasons behind her daughter's sudden move. Marilyn immediately assured her that her problems were not related to drugs, debts, or relationships. When her mother asked if she had been attacked, Marilyn remained silent, her face showing pain as she began to cry. Andre suggested that Marilyn speak with a psychologist if she didn't want to talk to her. On the morning of February 17th, the day after moving from Montreal, Marilyn told her parents she was going out for a walk. She was wearing a long black coat with gray faux fur trim and suede boots. She only took a credit card with her, leaving cash and identification at home. Shortly after 11 a.m., Marilyn stopped at an ATM on Ormière Boulevard in Loretteville, formerly a city now part of Quebec. Her attempt to withdraw $60 Canadian was declined. Surveillance footage released later showed her glancing back several times. She also had a black backpack slung over one shoulder. On the evening of February 17th, when Marilyn didn't return home, her family contacted the Quebec police to report her disappearance. The police quickly traced her route to the ATM and coffee shop. The family also began their own search efforts, combing the city and distributing flyers with her photo and other information. A reward of 10,000 Canadian dollars was offered for any information on Marilyn's whereabouts. Local media actively covered the case. After reviewing surveillance footage, Marilyn's parents agreed that she looked helpless. Crime journalist Claude Poirier, in one episode of his TV series, visited the ATM location and suggested that Marilyn may have been looking back at a car parked on the street, which was clearly visible from that spot. A year after Marilyn's disappearance, the police released the surveillance footage hoping to find new witnesses. They focused particularly on identifying anyone who may have given Marilyn a ride to the last location where she was seen. For nearly 2 years, there were no new leads in the case. In January 2010, journalist Claude Poirier received a tip from someone claiming to have seen Marilyn in the town of Hawkesbury, Ontario. This person reported seeing her regularly over the past year and believes she was living there with a young man. Some regulars at a restaurant in the town center also claimed to have seen her there with a man after being shown her photo. However, this information didn't lead to finding Marilyn. Later, the Bergeron family hired Marc Bellemare, a former Quebec Minister of Justice, as their attorney. At a press conference in 2017, Marilyn's family announced that the reward for information leading to her whereabouts had been increased to 30,000 Canadian dollars. During this conference, Marc Bellemare, the family's lawyer, also announced the creation of a dedicated hotline for people who might have valuable information but were reluctant to contact the police directly. At a subsequent press conference in November of the same year, the Bergeron reported receiving 43 calls via the hotline. Joining the family at this event was someone who had interacted with Marilyn in the last month she spent in Montreal, before returning to her parents' home and subsequently disappearing. Jonathan Gauthier, a college friend of Marilyn, had met with her in Montreal at the end of 2007. On December 10th, he went to her apartment so they could go to a party together. He immediately noticed a change in Marilyn's behavior. Gauthier stated that she was no longer cheerful and optimistic as before, but seemed very downcast. Marilyn's mood lifted slightly when they arrived at the party, but after a conversation with a female friend, Gauthier noticed she suddenly became highly anxious, as though the conversation had triggered a disturbing memory. She asked him to take her home. Once back at her apartment, her mood worsened and she began crying continuously. Gauthier asked if she had been raped or witnessed a murder, but she denied both. Instead, Marilyn told him that something terrible had happened. Gauthier repeatedly asked her to explain, but she refused. She said, "You have no idea what I've been through, Joe." He tried to get her to talk for 3 or 4 hours, and he got the impression that she didn't want to put him in danger. At a press conference in October 2022 in Hawkesbury, the family's attorney, Marc Bellemare, shared another possible sighting related to Marilyn. A local resident reported to Quebec police that one cold December night in 2009, he and his wife were awakened by a knock at their door at 2 a.m. A young woman, dressed only in a light jacket, a white t-shirt, jeans, and high heels, was standing on their doorstep. She was crying and asked if she could use their phone. The couple gave her a towel to dry her face, and she calmed down. She tried to make a call, but it seemed she didn't get an answer. She then asked for directions to the nearest street. The man offered to drive her, but she declined, saying it was close enough to walk. She left about 15 minutes after knocking, apologizing for the disturbance. 3 months later, they saw news about Marilyn's disappearance and recognized the woman who had come to their home that night. She was blonde, not brunette, but Marilyn's family noted that she occasionally dyed her hair. To this day, the search for Marilyn Bergeron continues, and that concludes our coverage of this tragic story. If you found this video informative or thought-provoking, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more updates on cases like these. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Feel free to share this video with your friends and give it a thumbs up if you found it valuable. Thank you for watching.